Welcome to the Perfect Life Awakening Show, hosted by Royce Morales. Royce has been a transformational facilitator, teaching groundbreaking, spiritually based courses for more than 4 decades. She is the author of 3 books about her teachings. Join Royce as she takes you on a journey into how to live your best life and find your true purpose through discovering the origins of subconscious, disempowering notions and releasing them. She talks with experts and inspiring people just like you who learned to trust their intuitive inner wisdom, which led to life-changing shifts. Today, her guests live an empowered existence and are helping change the world to a higher consciousness place based on truth and love. You deserve to awaken to, align with, and embody your true self and live a life filled with love. Transform yourself from triggered to empowered and create your perfect life. Here is your host, Royce Morales.
Hello, welcome to my show. I am so excited today. I'm going to be talking with someone who we recently discovered we have a lot in common in our life. And excuse me, we're going to talk about synchronicities, creating miracles. How do you do that? And, you know, in our world, it is so challenging to cope with, the everyday, everything lately going on. There's constant negativity and fear and challenges and political, all kinds of stuff. You guys know about that. But is it possible to find the meaning behind all of those things, or to see them in a bigger way, a bigger picture beyond the chaos, as my guest likes to say, seeing things as inspirational rather than suppressive, awakening instead of numbing. And I personally know that it is. I live my life in that way. I've had more miracles than, I could fill this entire show talking about my own miracles and the synchronicities that I've experienced. But of course, I'm going to allow my guest to do that. But I've learned a lot from going through those things, that I learned and I really experienced that there really are no coincidences. And sometimes we don't see it until we look back on them. I know in my life, I look back on things and it's like, oh God, if that hadn't happened, then this couldn't have happened. And I get it now. And I'm seeing the bigger picture and understanding it. The puzzle pieces have fallen into place. But one of the things I'm going to talk to her about, which I think is really important, and I talk a lot in my course about this, is that it's far too easy to look at something that happened and make it mean something. There's a real difference between having a real synchronicity and a real miracle and a real, coincidence. I don't even like that word. Versus, I want him to like me, so I'm going to look at that license plate and I'm going to say, oh yeah, that's a sign. I've done that far too many times. True confession. Anyway, without further ado, let me talk a little bit about my guest, Liliane. She has a beautiful accent, and I have to make sure to pronounce her name right. Liliane Fortna. So she is a multi-award-winning author. She's an energy healer and a transformational spiritual teacher. She has profound work about signs, synchronicities, and spiritual awakenings. Her best-selling nonfiction book, which I just happen to have here, which is great. It's wonderful. It's just filled with personal stories about what she experienced in her life that were miracles and synchronicities. But she wrote this book, and it gives you profound insights and practical tools to empower your spiritual journey, deepen your innate connection with the divine, and navigate life's challenges with grace and wisdom, and live authentically in alignment with your soul's purpose. She went through a very traumatic childhood. I read some of the stuff that she went through, and it's amazing. And so she's dedicated her life to helping others to open up and recognize and interpret the subtle messages from the universe that are surrounding us. And she's going to hopefully share a bunch of those amazing stories. Let's see what else I have to say about her. Page 2. She is currently working on other projects that I'm sure she'll tell us about. Before all of this, which I think is really interesting, she was a professional contemporary dancer, performing all over the place. She was a fashion model, fashion consultant, Amazon rainforest explorer. Oh my gosh. Wife, mother, grandmother, energy healer, Reiki master, consciousness explorer, and artist. Oh my gosh. Amazing. So, welcome, Liliane.
Thank you so much, Royce, for having me. It means so much.
Oh, well, I'm just thrilled that you're here. And I don't usually emphasize purchasing someone's book, but I really encourage you to purchase this book because it's absolutely fascinating. The stories that she shares are fascinating. So tell us, I know you had a huge illness and you had a traumatic childhood. How did all of that lead into your discovery of all of these things and writing a book about it? Tell us that story.
Well, during my illness, during my recovery time, I spent 1 month at the hospital and I had plenty of time to go back through my life. And I realized that I was very lucky to have found the right doctor. I was in the right hospital, and they created a surgery that had never been done before without disfiguring me. So it was just something remarkable. Plus, everything around the hospital was supporting me. I only asked for a single room. I was given the best room in the hospital, which was half a circle, full bay window on the old town. I didn't never ask for that. I mean, it was just amazing. Everything. The day I opened my eyes and said, I need help. Because for a while I was very depressed during that illness. I couldn't find out what to do until the day I said, "Okay, you have to accept what's coming up. How much time do you have? Is it 6 months, a year, 2 years? Will you be totally disfigured or what?" So I had all these thoughts coming to my mind, and it was very frightening. But the day I said, "Okay, well, I'm going to face this standing up, whatever comes my way, and I'm going to do my very best till the end." Suddenly, what I could not perceive for a while because I was so depressed, and it happens to all of us, we have like a gray cloud around us and we can't perceive anything except our own pain that we are going through. Suddenly, I was again in contact with my guides and I could see signs come my way. Like, call that doctor, do this, do that. And things would come so easily to me the day I changed my mind.
Mm.
So, when I was, for 1 month, I was in my bed and thank God I had my computer. And I said, well, you're very, very lucky with what's happening. And then I started to think of my life all the way back. And I said, oh my God, you've been very lucky here and here and here. And suddenly my whole life seemed to be having a lot, it had a lot of down, but it brought me up and probably better or higher up than it would have if I had not been so down. So suddenly I started to see all these things and I said, my God, I never realized that really. Um, why don't I share it with others? It's very, very important that I share what I'm finding now, that we are never alone, that we just have to ask for help and we have to approach it a certain way that opens us up to seeing, perceiving from all the different senses. And so that's when I said I have to write a book, but how? So then I went through the process of writing a book in the
Right.
most, you know what it is. You wrote 3 books to write it in a way that is the clearest, which is not easy when you go through your um, life because everything is at one level in some ways. But to make it clear to anyone reading the book, and they might find little bits that are similar to what they have experienced. So that was very important. And then I said, well, to tell my story is not enough. I want to tell people how to be able to do what they wish to do, what they really want to do, what they're here for. And how do they do that? So then that's when I devised a few exercises to do that are very, very simple. Nothing you don't have to buy for a course or anything. It's right there within you or around you, and anybody can do it no matter how old you are. So even when I talk about dance, which to me is it's moving, it's very important as well. You can be seated, but get the sound, the music speak to you in a way that it makes your body vibrate, even if you don't stand up because you can't or whatever reason. But still, it's here and it makes you vibrate inside. And when you're in that mode, then you can perceive things around you much better. You're very open.
Yeah, yeah. So I was reading your book, and you have pages and pages and pages of miracles and synchronicities that have happened to you. Share the one that kind of pops into your mind. What's the biggest one that you experienced?
Well, there are so many, but one that comes because um, the signs do appear through so many different things. It could be through a dream, for instance, or you have a thought, and the person you were thinking about just calls you, and you had not seen that person maybe for 1 year, etc. So there are lots of things. But I'm going to talk about one dream that was very strange. I lost a cat. And there was a lot of wind. I lived in Brussels at the time. There was a lot of wind, and I know one chimney fell down on a roof and fell down behind a building. I couldn't see where it went. So there were a bit of damage. From that day on, I couldn't find my cat. And it went on for about 3 days until I had a dream. And in my dream, I saw my cat in a cellar, but the cellar had a fireplace. It didn't, I said a fireplace in a dark cellar, that's very odd. Anyway, the next morning I forgot about it. I thought it was so silly anyway. And I went to the grocery store. Normally I went in the morning. That day I went in the afternoon. And as I arrived, one lady was talking to the manager and said, yeah, you have to do something about it. I heard it for 3 days. And it's in your building. It was a building two or three blocks further. And it belonged to him, and he was doing a lot of renovation. So she was talking about that. Anyway, and it just said, I don't have the time now. So she left. I didn't know what they were talking about, but I felt I had to ask the lady, so I ran after her, and something I would never do. I said, what were you talking about? And she said, well, I hear a cat behind a door of that building that is renovated. And it's been there for 3 days, and nobody's coming in. Oh, take me to that building. So I went to the building. Under the door, there was a little bit of space. I put my hand underneath while I heard the meowing. And then I felt a little head in my hand.
Oh,
And it was an adult cat, but it was very small. I knew it was my cat. So I went back, had the manager call someone to come and open the door. It was about an hour later when that person arrived. So that young man and myself were by the door entering, and the cat saw us. So it ran especially the man, so it ran to the back. And so we followed. At the back, there was a stairwell going down, and there was no electricity because it was under renovation, but he had his cell phone. So he turned on the light, and we went downstairs, and oh my God, there was a fireplace, and there was my cat.
oh my gosh.
So I was just, oh my God, this is, these type of things. So it means that it also works when we sleep. My cat probably contacted me. How would I have known to go to the store at the right time to hear the lady tell me the story, or at least a story that interested me, and go down the stairs and see a fireplace in a cellar?
Wow. Wow.
That's for instance something that happens through dreams, and that quite a lot of others. And I encourage your audience to try to write down when they have a dream, write down in a few words what it is with a date. because it might be related. It's very likely that it's related to something that might happen, that might have happened, but it might also happen in the near future. So that was just just fascinating.
Wow. Wow. It just seems like people have these experiences all the time, but they don't listen or trust them, which is very sad. I mean, I can't imagine living a life without at least acknowledging that, oh my God, that was amazing. Well, look at how that happened and what it took to get me there or whatever. What do you tell people in terms of, you've got to trust this? How do you convince people to trust that? I know that before I was involved in spirituality, I mean, I've always been involved in spirituality, but there was a time in my life that my skepticism took over and I thought all that stuff was bunk. You know, what can you tell somebody to encourage them to trust that and follow that and listen to that?
Well, first of all, I'm quite the right person because for decades I took things for granted. I was questioning a lot when I was in my early 20s. But then I could not really find an answer back then. There were not a lot written about all that. And I certainly could not ask the people I knew, were friends, like the nuns. I was raised in a Catholic boarding school. So there are things I could not ask or talk to with people. So for decades, I just took it for granted. Oh, that's I didn't use synchronicity. That word was not used back then. But oh, just a change. That's just like I'm lucky. That was usually what I would say without looking any further
Yeah.
until I had that illness. So now what I can say is I wish in many ways that I had paid more attention. But fortunately, yeah, to have that illness was not fun, but there is always a silver lining somewhere. And it allowed me to revisit my life and discover all the little miracles or big miracles that occurred. But how? So that's what I analyze in my book. Um, how did that happen? What made it happen, etc. So uh, yeah, it is very important to go back and try to piece things together. Um, so what I'm doing now in my course is I created a it's a couple of pages on how to enter events that happen to you with just a few lines, maybe even 2 lines. So keep a calendar of synchronicities because um, fortunately I had kept my diaries and I wrote a lot of things in my diaries. So I could retrieve a lot of events throughout my life. But some people don't or don't want to write. So I created something, it's just a one-liner. When it happened, why, how did you feel, etc., the date and location. And then see, maybe in 2 months from now, there will be a connection right here, but it started maybe 2 months before. You didn't see that coming, but it was preparing you. So what I would tell people, those who write a journal, go back in your journal and look for each time you have a word such as weird, bizarre, strange, odd, just go to that page and reread the story or whatever you wrote with that word because it's probably a synchronicity. You could not understand it back then. It surprised you uh, because it was odd, but why? So just go back and you will discover a lot of gems in your life that you did not know you had.
Hmm.
Things that happened or that made you do certain things that led you to something else. So that's how I led my life without really knowing because I was following my intuition. So another thing I would say for people who don't believe, it's important to follow your intuition. Your intuition is here to guide you, to show you the way, to tell you, no, you're wrong, better to go that way. But you don't always understand because you think you know much better. Oh,
Right.
this is below me, or this is way too hard, or whatever. Instead of looking at it as it is and say, well, why not try, So there are lots of things like that we do to ourselves. We just, like you explained, we don't, um, things happen, but we don't see them or we dismiss them. Or it's not, uh, we're guided to do a certain thing at a certain time, but nah, it's the wrong time because of this and that. So you have a long page of things that are more important. That's what your intuition is telling you to do. So
Yeah.
sometimes we don't have a balance.
Yeah.
It's so it's there is work to do on ourselves, definitely. I'm not saying it's very easy, but once you understand the mechanism, you open your heart, your soul, you trust that you have guides and angels or entities, benevolent entities, helping you on your life path,
Yeah.
then suddenly things become easier.
Yeah.
Even when you go through great difficulties, like my illness, yeah, it was not fun. I just didn't know if I would be disabled or so, but there were a lot of silver linings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, imagination is important. I find that sometimes, like, I'll give you an example. At the hospital, I had a tube in my nose that went straight into my stomach for 1 month. So no food, just that. And people would come into my room and say, "Oh, aren't you bothered by that?" I say, "Oh, no, 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 no. This is my buffet. You see, for dinner, I think tonight I'm going to have biscuit de homard, and I can have anything I want. I'm not it's not fattening, so I can have anything. I'm just tell what you want, close your eyes, and test it." And it did work for me. I was really not bothered
Huh.
at all. So there are lots of things like that. Also, when you go to an MRI, it's good to have a bit of imagination because it's really not fun to be put in that tube for 30, 40 minutes sometimes. And what I do typically, as soon as I'm wheeled inside, my eyes are closed, and I feel the warmth. I say, "Oh, beautiful sun." I start feel a bit of movement. I say, "I'm on a boat. Oh my God! Oh, Hawaii is over there. I can see the coast." And then suddenly, boom, 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 boom. Oh, we're reaching high sea now. Oh, it's beautiful. I even add in my imagination a few birds flying above. And
Yeah.
one time they had to wake me up.
Oh, wow.
Relaxed. So
Yeah.
there are things that you can do to make your life easier.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about difficult things such as death or, because then you have to go through the grieving process. But still, you can come out of that maybe a bit faster and still keep deep inside that there is a silver lining somewhere. That way you keep your mind looking for it.
Yeah. So, what about what I said in the beginning about sometimes we like to make up, shall we say, synchronicities because they fit what we want and they're not real? I could give a terrible story about something that I did. I'll remain anonymous on this story, but I was dating a guy and I really wanted him to love me. And I used to look at billboards and go, "Oh, there's a sign. He loves me." Things like that that are not true synchronicities or true um, coincidences, but we make them up out of our fear. What
Mhm.
about that? What about that?
Well, sometimes it's difficult to know, but maybe what you can do, I do a lot of work at night during my sleep. I ask myself a question before going to sleep, and I ask for an answer through the night. And sometimes in a dream, I have an answer. And that's a true answer because my subconscious is alive. And it's, I haven't been disappointed with the responses I get through the night. There is so much you can do at night when you go to bed. Uh, I would suggest write a very simple phrase, never too many things at the same time. Just write something I would like to know about. etc. But just one question and let it be, and maybe say it again and again and again as you fall asleep, so it goes into your subconscious, and it allows then your subconscious or your soul to travel and bring you some answers that you don't during the day, because your mind is really working too hard and scratching everything because that's maybe not the answer you want, you see. But at night you might find really the right answer. And the dreams might come as direct, but it can also come as symbols. So that's something you have to learn to just evaluate as well.
Yeah. And so those things that we're hoping are synchronicities, we should just, because they felt very real to me at the time. And then when I broke up with him, I thought, did I just make all that up? So how, I don't even know what I'm asking. Is there some way to really know when you're making something up versus something that is real?
Well, another thing I do at night, I connect with my guides.
Yeah.
I haven't done that all my life. It's only after my illness that I finally was able to connect. And I hear with my inner ears the answer. And what I do, see a little pad like that? What I do, and it might be useful to other people too, I put my thumb and then I write in the dark. That way I'm not disturbed at all. And then I move my thumb and I write. So I'm not copying on top of the other line. So even if I have 6 or 8 lines here, at least I have put quite a lot. And the next day I can transfer everything in my computer and expand, because then certainly I remember more that was said, or, the feelings I had at that time. But I found that very, very useful. And when I was revisiting, for instance, some episodes of my life when I was a child that were very painful, I just did not want to exaggerate the stories. I wanted the stories to be as true as possible when I wrote them down, because I owe that to my readers. So I would ask the question to take me back. And it was amazing, because suddenly I would be back and I could see the scene happening. And there are so many things I understood that I did not back then. And I was able to correct certain things as well that I had remembered, but not quite accurately. And then suddenly, as it was presented to me, suddenly I did remember, because it triggered some memories I had just forgotten. So that's also a good way, if you can, contact your guides. But in my book, I teach on how to do that as well, to contact your guide, to even find out the name of your main guides, and they change depending on what you're doing. You might have a certain specialty and you want a certain guide to help you, but there is typically one that is right there beside you. I ask my angels as well. They have another role to me, which is protection. But for anything else, I ask my guides.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we need to take a bit of a break. And just to remind everybody, I'm talking with Liliane Fortna, the author of Wings from Above, and we'll be right back.
Times TV. Do you crave joy but feel stuck? Do you go through life feeling constantly triggered and frustrated? Fear is likely the culprit, and subconscious fear is likely sabotaging you. Perfect Life Awakening is a time-tested, spiritually based approach to inner transformation created by Royce Morales. For over 40 years, she has helped people get to the origins of subconscious fears and ultimately help them find their true purpose and a life full of joy. Sign up for Perfect Life Awakening today at roycemorales.com. You deserve to go from triggered to empowered, shifting your life with Perfect Life Awakening. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. I am talking to Liliane Fortna, and we're talking about miracles and synchronicities and all those fun things that many of us just don't trust or invalidate or belittle in some way. So tell us another one of your remarkable synchronicity events. I would love to hear another story about that.
Oh my God, so many to choose from. When I was a little girl, there was a dog coming to get me in the morning. It was not our dog. I lived in a village, a seacoastal village. It was not our dog. It belonged to the priest of the parish. And he would come in the morning. He would bark at the garden gate. I would come. It was time to go to school. He would accompany me to school. And when school was over, he would be at the gate waiting for me to take me back. And at the time, it seemed fun and normal. I don't know how long it lasted, but long enough that it's still very vivid in my mind. And when I thought of that, it was a time in my life when I was bullied by other children in the village because I was not totally white and I was not born in France. And some kids were not very nice at all. So when I would reach school, it was not unusual to have a few bullies saying bad things to me. But to have that little dog changed that. And after school, he would be right there at the gate beside me and trot beside me. He never wanted to play, really. He just wanted to, he had a job to do. He would take me back home. And it's only later that I realized, I said, my God, yes, I was bullied at the time. And I remember when he was with me, it was nice. I felt comfortable. I had my little friend with me. So that, to me, was the act probably of my guardian angel sending a creature to comfort me and take me to and from school when I needed it. So that's one. I have a lot of stories with animals, actually. Another one, and you read it in my book, is about a dog who came to play with me a lot. I did not have any friends. I was not allowed to play with other children, but animals from the village would come and visit me. So we would play on the beach, we would play in the forest. And that dog was particularly present in my life. And one time, I did not see him for several days, and I was very surprised because he would come to visit me every day. So I walked to his house, which was not too far, and I saw him in front of his door. There was a dirt path leading to the door. And so I approached him, and he was tied up, and he looked very, very scrawny, and he even had a bone sticking from his ribs area. He'd been bitten very badly. So I just didn't know what to do. So I talked to him, and then I left. And the next day or so, I was home and I heard a howling, barking. I looked, and a little bit further on the street, the street would turn, but he was right there, looking in my direction, barking. So I went down, tried to run after him. He was already gone. And the next day or so, someone said that they found Muluk, that dog, near a pond, dead.
Oh,
And it's a pond where he and I went very, very often because he was beaten by his mistress, and I was not faring any better. So we were together. It was always a happy time. So we were either on the beach or in the woods, and he went there to die.
wow.
So that touched me a whole lot. But I did not understand at the time the significance. It's later that I understood that love exists. You can have friends. You know, it did help me during that time when it was very difficult. So that's another little dog.
Yeah. So how did you were mentioning, I know you talk about this in your book. How do you tap into your ability to really notice and understand synchronicities? Give us some little exercises or things to be aware of that can help you with that.
For instance, you walk in the forest. There are ways of walking in the forest. You just walk, you think about what you're going to cook for dinner or whatever, you know. You can also walk in a very meaningful way, slowly. Open yourself, which means your ears. So you hear maybe there is a brook over there, so you hear the water. Then there is maybe a little bit of wind, so you hear the leaves rustling. There is maybe a bird flying above you, a bird that is perched, you know, calling you, etc. The sound of your feet on the ground as well. All that, when you pay attention to all these things, suddenly your mind, your heart, your soul open. You don't have all those negativities that we carry periodically bothering us. So we do open. And that's when it's not unusual that suddenly we have things coming to our mind. We are alerted to look at here and that makes you think of something else, etc. For instance, the way I managed to change my way of thinking when I was very sick. I had it, and I just was going to give up and say, okay, well, I'll die. And one day, when I decided that actually I was going to face it, I'm going to surrender, things started to come my way. One of the major things that came my way, I was going to the gym and it was pouring rain. So I was trying to find a place to park as close to the door as possible. And then I saw a car was going to back up. So I waited. Then another car passed between the two of us and went to fill a spot that was maybe 2 spots further. I said, why didn't I see that? And then it took me to what I had done to take care of my problem, which I was guided to call back to Belgium, where I had been very, very well treated. The medical system over there is great. But I had not received an answer from my GP. And since I had not seen him for quite many years, I said, well, maybe he has moved or his email address is different. And the fact that I had thought too fast, take that spot, I did not let myself think and look a little bit further where I would have gotten the spot right away. I said, well, you move too fast. There are other ways. You have to call another doctor. Think now. And then another doctor came to mind, and bingo, that was the right doctor. 3 days later, he had already put me in touch with a specialist who was going to take care of me.
Wow.
But it's that little thing, cars, rain. You see, so sometimes when you open, you know what you're looking for, you know what you want, you'd like an answer, and you're open enough, suddenly you do something or something happens that makes you think of where you should go. You don't get an answer, a real answer. You have to do this, you don't push from the back, go this way. But you get enough signs to give you the sense of direction.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it was just, oh, I thought too fast, I moved too fast, that was the wrong move.
Mm.
Let rethink of how I'm going to approach that, and yeah, that was the right way.
Yeah.
So that's another way of thinking. Another way that helps me tremendously, I hadn't been in touch with my inner child for quite a while. And an inner child is very, very important because it is your true self. It's not adulterated by life in general. So when you're in touch with your inner child, you can see life with more joy, because there are so many little things that you don't see as an adult. Suddenly, as a child, you find it interesting. You know, there are lots of things you look at life differently. You're in nature, and instead of walking through the path, oh, look at this! Wow, that's great! Oh, that leaf is so beautiful. I mean, little things like that. It sounds silly, but not to me, because it's a candies to my soul in some way.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful. And now that I have granddaughters to play with, I have an excuse. Or I do that for my granddaughters. Like not too long ago, there was a heavy rain, and I was downtown, and there was some puddles. So guess what? Puddles. It's so much fun to jump in the puddles. So she and I, we walked the whole street. Oh, look, another one. We were drenched. People were thinking, look at that older lady. Whatever. That's, whatever. Come join us if you want to. But it was so much fun to do. And that's so good, and lots of little problems you don't even think about. This was so much fun.
Yeah.
Remember this with I have to smile and even laugh when I see us with that.
Yeah.
So there are so many little things like that we can do that are very, very simple. We don't need to go through a lot of complicated ways of achieving what you want. We have that within us. It just be reawakened, and oftentimes it's simple. Like, take a simple walk in the forest, but just open your ears, open your eyes. Your sense of smell is the train. Oh, the earth smells so good after the rain. Touch. Oh, look at that tree. The bark is interesting. Or simply put your hand in the grass when it's a little bit wet and it tickles a little bit, and it's, all these things are so pleasurable, and we forget.
Yeah.
But when we do that, suddenly we reopen. Part of us that was the parts that were closed, suddenly do reopen to the beauty, to the fun that is around us. And that's what we have to use to go through life, because life is not easy. I mean, we all go through trauma, problems, but if we know how to maneuver, then it's easier. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier.
Yeah. I find that, kind of based on what you just said, I find that there's a reason that you're pulled toward something. For example, I used to own a shop, and I used to have to go to gift shows all the time. And I found myself, and I was very specific about what I wanted for this shop. It had to be earth friendly. It had to be spiritual. It had to be organic. So I would walk through these gift shows of thousands of vendors. We're talking 10,000 vendors sometimes. And I would just find myself just walking in a daze because there was just so much. And all of a sudden, my little intuitive sense said, go into that booth. And I said, oh no, that booth doesn't have anything. Go into that booth. And
Mm.
I would say, okay, fine. And I would go in and there would be one thing that would be perfect for my shop, always. So it's just, those polls, we've got to listen because that is not a coincidence. That's a message. So
That-
even in your example of the forest, if you suddenly feel pulled to go to that tree, there's a reason. Listen to it.
mhm.
So, yeah.
No,
So you were mentioning that there are several ways that we can attune to synchronicities or intuition. You call them your six intuitive senses. What are those?
they are, let's see, you have clairaudience, clairsentience, clairgustance, which is the taste, clairsentience is the feeling, clairaudience, of course, is listening, clairvision is seeing, and you have, let's see, what is the other one?
The smell.
Clairolfaction.
Yes.
Clairolfaction, yes. And there are others. I mean, some people say there are more. I'm using the ones I mentioned in my book, but there are more. And sometimes they are mixed, you know. But it's good to know because a class that I have now, I ask the people to, tell us, share with us the synchronicity they experienced the past week or 2 weeks. And then I ask them, how did you get this? Was it clairaudience, clairsentience? Just to make sure that they understand. And most people receive mostly through one, maybe two. It's very rare to be more, to get via all the senses.
Yeah.
I mean, I do get a lot, but it's most people are very visual, or they hear a lot too. Or some people are very good at smelling something, like suddenly a smell of a cake that they haven't smelled in years since grandmother died. And what does that mean?
Yeah.
It could very well be that the presence of your grandmother is with you. And maybe because you need to ask something. Or maybe she's there because you had some troubles and she's there to help. Or it could be the cologne of a man in your life. It could be, let's say, grandfather, and suddenly it comes to you again and it makes you think of that grandfather, and then why am I thinking about him? So maybe again there is something in your mind that makes you think of him because you'd like an answer. So maybe it's a good time to connect. And my connections are usually done at night, as I explained, before going to bed. I find that very useful. It's easy. And I tell people, well, if you have questions, just write them down, but one line at a time. Don't ask too many questions, and pick and choose the one you want to ask tonight. Because you might want to leave it right there on the list if you have not received the answer. You might not get the answer right away, but you will very likely. And just ask the question. If it's a question to a grandfather, grandmother. I had a friend actually I met in a course I was taking at the Monroe Institute. Are you familiar with the Monroe Institute?
Yeah.
Yeah, I took 12 seminars right at the Monroe Institute. Anyway, my roommate was a lady whose husband passed about 10 years before. And it was a seminar on connecting with the other side. And she was explaining to me that she had taken that course already 2 or 3 times. But after her husband died, it was very difficult for her financially because he had taken care of the finance that she didn't know how to do. So she learned how to connect. She connected with him. And she said it was fantastic because suddenly she was able to decipher all the things she needed to decipher to take care of the finance. So that's something interesting because she, by herself, she had no clue. And then there was a connection happen. I had another friend, she feels the entities around her. She even sees them. And one time she was redoing a whole garden, but she had no clue how to proceed because she's not a gardener. And one of the entities had been a gardener, designing gardener. So she asked for help. And she drew everything. Then she went to a nursery and they said, oh my God, must have been done by a professional.
That's great.
And she said, yeah, I have a friend with. So things like that, you know. And of course, some people will say, oh, that's wrong. But if it works, it works.
It works.
Why
Yeah.
not, you know? And it makes our life a little bit happier. That's good too.
Yeah.
So that's the importance.
So you're talking about ways to be aware and mindful of synchronicities. Is there a way to manifest more of them? Is it something that is okay to ask for on a spiritual level, or is it just trust whatever happens?
Well, the more you receive synchronicities, and you are open to them, the more you will receive. The more, because you're very in tune and you're very ready to see. And you have to put yourself also in a state of mind, of heart, that is very conducive to that. One way for me to feel like I'm walking on little clouds is to say something nice to somebody who needs it, see the reaction. I feel, my job is done for today. Next, you know, I remember being at a cash register, for instance, and the lady, there were maybe 3-4 people in front of me, so I had plenty of time to look at the lady, the cash register lady. And she looked very, I would say ugly at that point, because she was very, she looked angry, she looked not gracious at all. I thought, I feel that person needs a little pick-me-up. And I couldn't find anything to say. And the importance, if you do that, is whatever you say has to come from your heart. If you don't find anything to say, don't say it. So I couldn't find anything to say that. So finally I was in front of her, and on the other side, the side I couldn't see when I was in line, was a brooch. Not something I would wear, but very interesting. So I just said exactly what I just said. Oh, what a very interesting brooch. I never saw that before. So it came right from here. I was not exaggerating. Mm-hmm. And suddenly the smile made her pretty.
Wow.
And, you know, sometimes you have a lot of makeup, just a smile will change your face. And she started talking, and I felt good. I left and I turned to see how she was behaving with the next customer. She had that smile on. I said, yeah, God, done. I'm happy. And that afterwards, the rest of the day, I would say, I'm walking on a little cloud and I'm ready to see anything coming my way.
Yeah.
You know, so when you do something like that, in my case, it's to help somebody else. It doesn't cost me anything, just to have the right words. That's it. It's major. It can be major for somebody else because maybe it's exactly what they need that day. Maybe I'm the only one who will say something very nice. So anyway, that's a little trick. But don't ever force yourself.
Don't fake it.
Don't exaggerate. Just say exactly what it is, because it will be felt that way as something coming from here, not awkward.
So we only have a couple more minutes. Tell us what you're doing now. I'm hearing that you're writing children's books, and tell us.
Yes. I decided after several people read my book, I was told by parents and grandparents, why don't you write a book for children using the messages you have in your book? I thought of it. I said, that's a great idea, because I already had the idea of writing for children and illustrating too, because it's fun. And I thought about it and said, yeah. And a lot of stories came up, based on actually some of my stories when I was a child, what I would have liked, and the difficulties that I was facing, etc. And some can be a lot of fun. And I want them to be meaningful but easy for the children to read. So the
Yeah.
book I'm writing now is for another series. So I'll have two series. One to empower the children with words and messages from Wings from Above. The other one, the other series is about Christmas because, and that's the book I'm writing right now. That's my first book. And it will
Excellent.
be published on 25th of October. That's when the launch will be.
So
So
we have like very, very quickly, tell us how to reach you, and because we've got to sign off here. So how can people reach you and read your book?
okay, if you go on my website, that's the easiest because you will have my email address and details about what I do. My website is wingsfromabove.com. So one word, wingsfromabove.com.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work, and you all listening and watching deserve to create miracles and synchronicities in your life. And I will see you all in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much, Liliane.
And thank you so much to you, Royce. And I can't wait to get all your books and discover all your wonderful messages.
Thank you. Bye-bye.